"You're just a distraction, Kaya." 5 words that shattered everything. 5 words that still echo through the silence of Lee Do-hyun's office, 3 floors above where Kaya Williams now stands in an empty conference room, her hands trembling as she holds the airplane ticket. Chicago, December 15th, 11:45 p.m. In exactly 48 hours, she will leave Seoul forever, carrying with her a broken heart and the memory of the moment when the man she loved reduced her to nothing more than an inconvenience. The sound of rain against the glass windows of the Future Vision building creates a melancholic symphony, her reflection fragmented by the water droplets sliding down the floor-to-ceiling windows. Do-hyun stares at the same rain, at the same city lights bleeding through the darkness, knowing that somewhere in this vast metropolis, the woman who taught him to love is preparing to disappear from his life. The merger documents spread across his mahogany desk seem meaningless now. Numbers and signatures that represent everything he thought he wanted, until he met her. The irony is suffocating. 6 months ago, on a night just like this one, they collided on these same rain-soaked streets. She was running for shelter. He was rushing between meetings. And in that brief moment, when their worlds crashed together, neither could have imagined that a simple accident would become the most beautiful and devastating experience of their lives. Now, as the December storm rages outside, they are once again separated by misunderstanding, pride, and the cruel weight of expectations that neither chose to carry. Kaya closes her eyes and remembers Do-hyun's touch, the way his cold hands would warm against her face when he thought she wasn't looking, how his typically serious expression would soften into something tender and vulnerable whenever she laughed. She remembers the nights they spent walking through Hongdae, sharing secrets in a mixture of broken Korean and patient English, building a language of love that transcended words. Most painfully, she remembers the morning he told her she was the first thing that made him want to wake up excited about the day. But love, she has learned, is not always enough to overcome the barriers that society, family, and fear construct around the heart. Tomorrow, she will pack her dreams into 2 suitcases and return to a life that no longer fits, carrying within her the ghost of what could have been. Unless... What would you do if the person who changed your entire world suddenly claimed you were just a distraction? Would you fight for a love that seems impossible? Or would you protect your heart and walk away? This is Kaya's story. And maybe, just maybe, it's not over yet. The autumn air in Seoul carries the scent of sweet potatoes roasting on street carts, and the distant promise of winter when 23-year-old Kaya Williams first steps off the plane at Incheon International Airport. Her curly hair, twisted into a protective style for the long flight, frames her face as she navigates the overwhelming maze of signs in Hangul, her honey-colored eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and terror that only comes from stepping into the complete unknown. Chicago feels like a different planet now, not just 14 hours behind. The weight of her father's worried phone call still presses against her chest. Robert Williams had spent the entire week before her departure trying to convince her to choose a safer exchange program, somewhere in Europe where the language barrier wouldn't be so insurmountable, where his successful daughter wouldn't feel so lost. But Kaya has always been drawn to challenges that others consider impossible. Learning Korean through late-night apps and weekend language exchanges at the local cultural center, spending her savings on this program that promises academic credit but guarantees nothing else, these choices feel like acts of rebellion against the careful, predictable life her family has mapped out for her. The subway ride to Sinchon is her first real culture shock. The organized chaos of rush hour, the respectful silence broken only by the soft sounds of K-pop bleeding from headphones, the way people bow slightly even in crowded spaces. Everything is simultaneously foreign and familiar, like stepping into a drama she's watched 100 times but never truly understood. Her tiny studio apartment near Yonsei University becomes her refuge and her prison. 400 square feet of possibility and loneliness, where she practices pronunciation to herself and tries to decode the mystery of Korean social interactions. The first weeks pass in a blur of administrative confusion, academic pressure, and the constant, exhausting effort of existing in a language that still feels like solving puzzles with every sentence. It's during one of these solitary evenings when homesickness hits like a physical ache that Kaya makes the decision to stop hiding in her apartment. She wraps herself in the warmest coat she brought from Chicago, laughably inadequate for Korean autumn, and steps into the neon-lit streets of Hongdae, searching for something that might feel like belonging. Lee Do-hyun's day begins at 5:30 a.m. with meditation, black coffee, and a review of international market reports that most people his age would find mind-numbingly boring. At 28, he has already been running Future Vision for 3 years, transforming his late father's traditional manufacturing company into one of Korea's most innovative tech startups. Success for him is measured in quarterly growth percentages and the respectful bows of employees who see him as a visionary leader, not the young man who still sometimes feels like he's playing dress-up in his father's suits. His penthouse apartment in Gangnam is a monument to minimalism and control. Every surface is clean, every object has its designated place, every minute of his day is scheduled with the precision of a Swiss watch. Emotional messiness has no place in a life built on discipline and the constant pressure of family expectations. His older brother Jae-won chose rebellion and artistic pursuits. Do-hyun chose duty and the weight of carrying forward a legacy he never asked for, but has learned to excel at. The autumn rain that evening represents just another logistical complication to his carefully orchestrated schedule. The investor meeting ran late. His driver got caught in traffic, and now he's forced to walk 3 blocks to where his car waits, his Italian leather shoes clicking against wet pavement as he mentally reviews tomorrow's presentations. He doesn't see the girl running through the rain until the collision happens, bodies crashing together with enough force to send his briefcase flying and her hot coffee splashing across both of them like liquid evidence of fate's intervention. For a moment that feels suspended in time, Do-hyun finds himself looking into the most expressive eyes he's ever seen, watching this stranger's face cycle through embarrassment, concern, and something that looks dangerously like laughter, despite the chaos they've created together. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she gasps in English, then switches to careful textbook Korean. "정말 미안해요." Her pronunciation is formal and precise, in a way that immediately marks her as foreign, but her urgency is universal. Do-hyun, who speaks fluent English from his MBA at Harvard, but rarely uses it socially, finds himself responding in her native language without conscious thought. "Are you hurt? You're soaking wet." His voice, typically sharp and businesslike, softens into something unfamiliar as he takes in her situation. No umbrella, clothes completely drenched, shivering in the cool evening air. What should have been a brief exchange of apologies becomes an hour-long conversation in the lobby of a nearby hotel, where Do-hyun finds himself buying coffee for a stranger and listening to her talk about culture shock and language barriers and the terrifying excitement of starting over in a place where everything is new. Kaya Williams. He learns her name somewhere between her second cup of coffee and his third glance at his watch, speaks with her hands and laughs with her whole body, and Do-hyun realizes he can't remember the last time someone made him forget about his schedule. The coffee shop near Yonsei University becomes an accidental stage for the most careful courtship either of them has ever experienced. Do-hyun tells himself he needs this particular cafe for its reliable Wi-Fi and proximity to a potential business partner. Kaya convinces herself that the barista here makes the best Americano near campus. Neither acknowledges that their coincidental meetings are happening with the regularity of appointments neither of them admits to keeping. Their conversations exist in the liminal space between Korean and English, where meaning is constructed through gestures, patient repetition, and the kind of focused attention that comes from genuinely wanting to understand another person. Do-hyun's formal, textbook Korean becomes more relaxed around Kaya, while her language skills improve exponentially under his unconscious tutoring. "Your Korean is getting much better," he tells her one afternoon, watching her successfully order a complicated drink modification that requires specific honorific language. "That's because I have a good teacher," she responds in Korean, then immediately blushes at her own boldness. "I mean, I practice a lot. By myself. Not that you're teaching me." "I didn't mean to assume," Do-hyun's laugh interrupts her rambling, a genuine surprised sound that makes the other cafe patrons look over in curiosity. In the corporate world, Lee Do-hyun is known for his serious demeanor and calculated responses. This spontaneous laughter is so rare that even his own employees would be shocked to witness it. "Would you like me to show you some places tourists don't usually see?" The question leaves his mouth before his rational mind can stop it, and Do-hyun realizes he's just asked a woman he barely knows to spend an entire weekend with him, abandoning every personal rule he's maintained since taking over the company. Kaya's smile in response is worth the break from protocol. "I thought you'd never ask." The traditional market in Dongdaemun becomes their first real adventure together. Do-hyun, wearing jeans and a casual sweater that makes him look younger and more approachable, guides Kaya through the maze of vendors selling everything from hand-knitted scarves to fermented foods that make her eyes water. He watches her fearlessly try street food that makes him nervous, laughs as she attempts to bargain in broken Korean with ajumas, who find her attempts charming rather than offensive. "Try this," he says, offering her a piece of hotdog from a cart that's been in the same location for 30 years. The sweet pancake burns her tongue, but she declares it the best thing she's ever tasted, and Do-hyun finds himself buying 6 more just to see her face light up with each bite. They visit Bukchon Hanok village as the sun sets, walking through narrow alleys between traditional houses that have survived Seoul's aggressive modernization. Kaya stops frequently to take photos, not of herself, Do-hyun notices, but of architectural details, the way light falls across ancient wood, the contrast between historical preservation and the modern city visible in the distance. "You have a good eye," he tells her, looking at the photos on her phone. "Most people just want selfies. I want to remember how it feels to discover something beautiful," she explains. "Not just prove I was here." This philosophy, experiencing rather than documenting for social media, resonates with Do-hyun in a way he didn't expect. His own relationship with Seoul has become transactional over the years. The city transformed into nothing more than a backdrop for business meetings and family obligations. Through Kaya's eyes, he begins to rediscover the place he's lived his entire life. They end the day at a small family restaurant in Mapogu, where the Ajuma treats them like a couple despite their protests, bringing extra banchan and teasing Do-hyun about bringing such a pretty girlfriend to their humble establishment. Neither corrects her assumption, and the unspoken possibility hangs between them like a question neither is ready to ask directly. Park Min-joon enters Kaya's life during a photography workshop at university, sliding into the seat next to her with the kind of easy confidence that comes from never having been rejected by anyone. At 24, he has the effortless charm of someone who has always been popular, combined with genuine artistic talent and the rare gift of making others feel interesting simply by listening to them. "You're the exchange student everyone's talking about," he says by way of introduction, his English accented but fluent. "I'm Min-joon. I've been wanting to meet you since the semester started." Where Do-hyun is intensity and carefully controlled emotion, Min-joon is lightness and spontaneity. He invites Kaya to join his friend group for dinner that same evening, introducing her to a world of Korean university social life that she's been observing from the outside. With Minjun, she experiences karaoke rooms and late-night convenience store runs, group dinners where everyone shares food and stories with the casual intimacy of chosen family. You're different with them, Do-hyun observes one evening when he picks her up from one of these gatherings. He's trying to keep his voice neutral, but Kaya catches the undertone of something that might be jealousy. Different how? She asks, genuinely curious. She climbs into his car. Another careful boundary they've been crossing. These rides that always last longer than the distance between destinations strictly requires. Lighter. More yourself, I think. He pauses at a red light, his hands gripping the steering wheel with more tension than the traffic situation warrants. Minjun is good for you. The statement hangs in the air between them, heavy with implications neither is ready to address directly. Do-hyun is acknowledging what they both know, but haven't said, that whatever is developing between them exists in a complicated space of cultural differences, social expectations, and the vast gap between their life circumstances. Minjun, meanwhile, is developing feelings that go beyond friendship, though he's careful not to pressure Kaya into anything she's not ready for. He takes her to art galleries and independent bookstores, shares his passion for photography, and his dreams of documenting social change through visual storytelling. Where Do-hyun offers glimpses into a world of luxury and sophistication, Minjun provides belonging and acceptance without conditions. The triangle that's forming isn't a competition exactly, but rather a choice between two completely different futures. One that would require Kaya to adapt to an existing world, and another that would allow her to help create something new. Choi Yoonji crashes into Kaya's life like a designer hurricane, all energy and opinions and the kind of confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are and refusing to apologize for it. A fashion design student with dreams of dressing K-pop stars, Yoonji takes one look at Kaya's practical American wardrobe and declares it a beautiful foundation that needs proper Korean styling. "You have amazing bone structure," Yoonji announces within 5 minutes of their first conversation, speaking English with the rapid-fire enthusiasm that characterizes everything she does. "But you're dressing like you're trying to disappear. Why hide when you could shine?" Their friendship develops over shopping trips through Myeongdong and Hongdae, where Yoonji teaches Kaya the art of Korean fashion, how to layer textures and colors, how to balance trendy pieces with classic elements, how to use clothing as a form of self-expression rather than camouflage. But more importantly, Yoonji becomes Kaya's cultural translator, explaining the unspoken rules of Korean social interaction that no textbook covers. Korean men are complicated, Yoonji explains over bubble tea one afternoon, after Kaya has mentioned Do-hyun for the third time in 10 minutes, without seeming to realize she's doing it. Especially successful ones. They're taught to put duty before desire, always. If he's spending time with you, it means something important. "We're just friends," Kaya insists. But even she doesn't sound convinced by her own words. "Friends don't look at each other the way you two do," Yoonji responds with the blunt honesty that makes her such a valuable friend. "But be careful, Unnie. CEO types come with complicated families and expectations. Are you ready for that kind of pressure?" Through Yoonji, Kaya begins to understand the intricate web of relationships and obligations that define Korean society, particularly for someone in Do-hyun's position. Every choice he makes affects not just himself, but his company, his employees, his family's reputation. The weight of this knowledge makes their growing connection feel both more precious and more fragile. Yoonji also becomes protective of her new friend in a way that surprises them both. When other students make comments about the foreign girl or whisper about her relationship with the famous CEO, Yoonji shuts down gossip with the kind of social authority that comes from being genuinely well-liked and respected. "Kaya Unnie is more Korean than some Koreans I know," she declares to anyone who will listen, She understands respect. She's learning the language seriously, and she actually cares about our culture instead of just taking selfies with it. The phone call from Chicago comes on a Tuesday evening when Kaya is studying in her apartment. Korean textbooks spread across her small dining table like colorful obstacles to fluency. Robert Williams' voice carries across the ocean with the weight of paternal concern and barely controlled frustration. "Baby girl, I've been talking to Dr. Peterson about your grades," he begins, referring to her academic advisor back home. "She says you're doing well academically, but I'm worried about other things I'm hearing." Kaya's stomach clenches as she realizes that somehow, despite her careful privacy, word of her relationship with Do-hyun has reached her father. In the age of social media and international student networks, secrets are harder to keep than she anticipated. "What exactly have you heard, Dad?" she asks, switching to English and immediately feeling the linguistic comfort of her mother tongue after hours of struggling with Korean grammar. "I've heard you're spending time with some businessman. Someone much older, very wealthy. Baby, I know you're smart, but you're also young and far from home, and some men..." He trails off, but his meaning is clear. Robert Williams didn't build a successful consulting business without developing strong instincts about people's motivations. And from his perspective, a wealthy Korean man pursuing his daughter looks like a predatory situation waiting to happen. The conversation stretches for an hour, with Robert expressing concerns about cultural differences, language barriers, and the possibility that Kaya is being taken advantage of by someone who sees her as exotic rather than genuinely valuable. His worries aren't entirely unfounded. Kaya has wondered about some of these things herself, but hearing them voiced by someone who loves her makes them feel more real and more threatening. "I'm not asking you to come home immediately," Robert finally says, his voice softening into the tone he used when she was small and afraid of thunderstorms. "I'm just asking you to be careful. And remember that whatever happens over there, you always have a home here, with people who love you no matter what." After hanging up, Kaya sits in the silence of her apartment, staring at her reflection in the dark window. Her father's concerns echo her own private fears. That she's living in a fantasy that will inevitably end. That she's mistaking novelty for love. That she's setting herself up for heartbreak by believing in something that might not be sustainable once the excitement of newness wears off. Lee Jae-won appears in Do-hyun's office on a Thursday afternoon without appointment or warning, carrying with him the scent of motorcycle exhaust and the kind of casual disregard for corporate protocol that makes Do-hyun's assistant nervous. At 32, the older Lee brother has made a career out of rejecting everything their father built, choosing art and independence over duty and family expectations. "So," Jae-won says, settling into the expensive chair across from Do-hyun's desk without invitation, "I hear you're dating a foreigner." Do-hyun looks up from his computer screen, his expression carefully neutral in the way that has served him well in business negotiations. "I'm not sure what you're referring to." "Don't play dumb, little brother. Seoul's high society is smaller than you think, and people talk. They're saying the future head of Future Vision is spending his evenings playing tour guide to some American student." Jae-won's tone is more curious than judgmental, but Do-hyun knows his brother well enough to recognize the underlying concern. "Her name is Kaya," Do-hyun says carefully, "and we're friends." "Friends." Jae-won repeats the word like it tastes interesting. "When's the last time you had a friend who wasn't also a business contact? When's the last time you did anything that wasn't calculated to benefit the company somehow?" The questions hit closer to home than Do-hyun wants to admit. Since their father's death, his life has indeed become a carefully constructed performance of leadership and responsibility, with little room for personal desires or spontaneous choices. "What's your point, Hyung?" "My point is that maybe this girl is good for you." Maybe you need someone in your life who doesn't care about market shares and board meetings. Maybe you need someone who sees Lee Do-hyun instead of CEO Lee. Jae-won pauses, his expression becoming more serious. But maybe you also need to think about what dating you means for her. The pressure, the scrutiny, the way our family and our world will judge her for everything she does. The conversation continues for another hour, with Jae-won pushing Do-hyun to examine his motivations and consider the consequences of pursuing a relationship that will inevitably become public knowledge. Unlike Robert Williams' concerns about his daughter being taken advantage of, Jae-won worries about the opposite, that Do-hyun might be unconsciously putting Kaya in an impossible situation where she'll be expected to conform to expectations she never chose and might not be able to meet. "I'm not saying don't pursue this," Jae-won concludes as he prepares to leave. "I'm saying make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and make sure she knows what she's signing up for. Because once this becomes serious, there's no taking it back. Our world doesn't forgive easily, and it never forgets." The first snow of winter arrives early, transforming Seoul into a landscape that looks like something from the dramas Kaya used to watch in secret. She and Do-hyun are walking through Namsun Park after dinner at a traditional restaurant where they've become regulars, their conversation flowing between Korean and English in the natural way they've developed over the past month. "There's something I need to tell you," Do-hyun says suddenly, stopping beside a bench that overlooks the city lights. The snow catches in his dark hair, making him look younger and more vulnerable than usual. Kaya feels her heart skip in a way that's become familiar whenever Do-hyun shifts into serious mode. "What is it?" "I've never done this before," he begins, then switches to Korean, as if the emotions are too complex for his second language. "I've never met anyone who made me want to change my entire routine, who made me look forward to something other than work. I don't know how to do this, dating, relationships, whatever this is, without making it complicated." "Do-hyun," she starts, but he continues speaking, the words coming faster as if he's afraid he'll lose courage if he stops. "My brother thinks I'm being selfish. My board members would probably have opinions about my personal life affecting the company. Your father probably thinks I'm some kind of predator taking advantage of his daughter." He looks at her directly, his dark eyes intense in the way that always makes her feel like he's seeing straight through to her soul. "Maybe they're all right. Maybe I am being selfish by wanting something that could complicate both of our lives." Kaya steps closer, close enough that she can see the snowflakes on his eyelashes, close enough that the space between them feels electric with possibility. "What if I want the complication?" The kiss that follows is soft and hesitant at first, then deeper as they both realize that this moment has been building since their first collision in the rain. Do-hyun's hands frame her face like she's something precious and fragile, while Kaya's fingers curl into the front of his coat, anchoring herself to this reality that feels too perfect to be sustainable. When they finally break apart, both breathing heavily in the cold air, Do-hyun rests his forehead against hers. "This is going to be difficult," he whispers. "Most worthwhile things are," Kaya whispers back. And in that moment, they both choose to believe that love might be enough to overcome whatever challenges are waiting for them. The snow continues to fall around them, creating a cocoon of privacy in the middle of one of the world's largest cities, and for the first time since arriving in Korea, Kaya feels completely at home. The weeks that follow their first kiss exist in a bubble of perfect happiness that both Kaya and Do-hyun recognize as fragile and precious. They create their own world within Seoul, late dinners at small restaurants where no one recognizes them, early morning coffee dates before the business world wakes up, weekend adventures to places outside the city where they can walk hand in hand without worrying about who might see them. Do-hyun introduces Kaya to aspects of Korean culture that tourists never experience. They visit his grandmother's house in Bukhansan, where the elderly woman feeds them homemade kimchi and tells embarrassing stories about Do-hyun's childhood while he protests in mock horror. Kaya learns to make proper Korean tea and listens to traditional music that Do-hyun plays on an ancient gyeogyum his grandfather left him. "You're different with your family," Kaya observes as they drive back to the city after one of these visits. "Softer, more playful." "I haven't been playful in years," Do-hyun admits. "Not since I took over the company. I forgot it was possible." In return, Kaya shares pieces of her American life through video calls with her father and stories about growing up in Chicago's South Side, where community and family loyalty were everything. She teaches Do-hyun phrases in African-American vernacular English that make him laugh, introduces him to music that becomes the soundtrack of their relationship, shows him how to make proper cornbread in her tiny apartment kitchen. Their cultural exchange becomes deeply personal, each sharing not just their heritage, but their dreams, fears, and the versions of themselves they've never shown anyone else. Do-hyun talks about the pressure of living up to his father's legacy and his secret wish to travel more, to see the world beyond business conferences and board meetings. Kaya opens up about feeling caught between her father's expectations and her own desires, about the loneliness of being the perfect daughter when perfection feels like a prison. Minjun notices the change in Kaya immediately, though he's gracious enough not to comment directly on her obvious happiness. Instead, he doubles down on being her friend, organizing group activities where he can spend time with her without the pressure of romantic expectations. His feelings haven't disappeared, but he genuinely cares about Kaya's well-being more than his own desires. "You're glowing," Yoonji comments more directly during one of their shopping trips. "I haven't seen you this happy since, well, ever since I've known you. He's good for you." "I think I might be in love with him," Kaya confesses, speaking the words aloud for the first time and immediately feeling both terrified and exhilarated by their power. "I know you are," Yoonji responds with a smile. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" The business crisis hits Future Vision like a carefully orchestrated disaster. A major investor pulls out at the last minute, citing concerns about the company's stability and focus. Rumors begin circulating in Korean business media about CEO Lee Do-hyun's distracted leadership and questionable personal choices. The company's stock price drops 15% in a single week. Do-hyun's days become a blur of emergency meetings, damage control, and the kind of high-pressure negotiations that determine the survival of everything his father built. He stops sleeping, survives on coffee and adrenaline, and gradually withdraws from everything in his life that isn't directly related to saving the company. Kaya watches this transformation with growing concern and helplessness. Their daily coffee dates disappear, then their evening dinners, then their text conversations. When she does see Do-hyun, he's distracted and exhausted, his responses monosyllabic, and his attention clearly elsewhere. "I'm worried about him," she tells Yoonji during one of their study sessions. "He's working himself to death, and I don't know how to help." "Maybe the best way to help is to give him space," Yoonji suggests gently. "Korean men, especially successful ones, sometimes need to handle crises alone before they can accept support. But the space between them grows into distance, and distance becomes a chasm that neither knows how to bridge." Do-hyun, drowning in pressure and responsibility, begins to convince himself that Kaya represents the distraction his critics claim she is. Every moment he spends thinking about her is a moment not focused on saving the company. Every text message is time that could be spent reviewing financial reports. The breaking point comes during a particularly brutal board meeting where the older members question not just Do-hyun's business decisions, but his judgment in general. One member, emboldened by the crisis, makes a thinly veiled reference to foreign influences affecting the CEO's focus. Perhaps it's time for our young leader to remember where his loyalties should lie, the man suggests, his meaning clear to everyone in the room. That evening, when Kaya appears at his office with dinner from their favorite restaurant and concern written all over her face, Do-hyun snaps. The exhaustion, pressure, and fear he's been suppressing for weeks erupts into words he immediately regrets, but can't take back. I can't do this anymore, Kaya. I can't afford distractions right now. Maybe we should take a break until things settle down. The word distraction hits Kaya like a physical blow. Every insecurity she's ever had about not being important enough, not being worth the effort, rises to the surface with devastating clarity. A break, she repeats, her voice carefully steady. I see. It's not that I don't care about you, Do-hyun continues, but the damage is already done. It's just that right now, I need to focus completely on the company. I can't be thinking about anything else. Kaya nods, gathering the dignity she learned from watching her father handle business disappointments with grace. I understand. Good luck with everything, Do-hyun. She leaves his office with her head high and her heart shattered, and Do-hyun immediately knows he's made the biggest mistake of his life. The notification pops up on Do-hyun's phone 3 days later, but he's too buried in emergency meetings to pay attention to it immediately. It's only late that night, when exhaustion finally forces him to stop working, that he sees the simple message that makes his blood run cold. Kaya Williams has purchased a flight to Chicago. Departure December 15th. If Do-hyun and Kaya's love story ends here, no one will ever know what could have been. Consider subscribing to see how this heart-wrenching chapter unfolds. Do-hyun stares at the flight notification until the words blur together on his phone screen. December 15th, 2 weeks away. Kaya is leaving, and suddenly every business crisis, every investor concern, every board meeting feels meaningless compared to the possibility of losing her forever. He tries to throw himself deeper into work, convincing himself that her departure will eliminate the distraction that everyone claims has been affecting his performance. But without Kaya's texts to break up his day, without the promise of seeing her smile at the end of brutal meetings, work becomes a gray monotony that drains all color from his life. The cruel irony is that his focus doesn't improve after pushing her away. It deteriorates completely. He finds himself staring out his office windows, looking for her familiar figure in crowds of strangers. He catches himself checking his phone for messages that never come. Most painfully, he discovers that all the small moments of joy that made the pressure bearable were connected to her presence in his life. Jaewon finds him in his office at 2 a.m. on a Thursday night, slumped over financial reports he's been staring at without comprehending for the past 3 hours. You look like hell, his brother observes, settling into the chair across from Do-hyun's desk, with the casual confidence that comes from years of ignoring corporate protocol. The merger is falling apart. The investors are nervous. The board members are questioning every decision I make. Do-hyun's voice is flat, emotionless in the way that signals complete exhaustion rather than calm control. And the girl? Do-hyun's hands still on his keyboard. What girl? Don't play dumb. The American student. The one who made you smile for the first time since Dad died. The one you're clearly miserable without. Jaewon leans forward, his expression serious. What happened? The whole story spills out. The pressure, the criticism, the fear that loving Kaya was somehow betraying his responsibilities to the company and family. Jaewon listens without interruption, his expression growing more concerned as Do-hyun describes the moment he called her a distraction and watched her heart break in real time. You idiot, Jaewon says finally. but his tone is affectionate rather than cruel. "Do you remember what Dad used to say about Mom?" Do-hyun looks up, surprised by the reference to their parents' relationship, which had been the gold standard of partnership and mutual support. "He said that Mom didn't make him weaker. She made him stronger. She didn't distract him from his goals. She helped him remember why those goals mattered in the first place." Jae-won stands, preparing to leave. "Dad built this company, but he never would have succeeded without Mom's support. Maybe you need to decide if you want to be the kind of leader who rules through fear and isolation, or the kind who leads through strength that comes from love and partnership." After his brother leaves, Do-hyun sits alone in his office, finally understanding that he's been approaching the crisis completely wrong. Instead of viewing Kaya as a distraction from his responsibilities, he should have seen her as motivation to become better at fulfilling them. Instead of pushing away the person who brought light into his world, he should have held on to her more tightly and proven that their love could coexist with his duty. But understanding comes too late. Kaya is leaving in 10 days, and after the way he treated her, he has no right to ask her to stay. Kaya spends the first 3 days after their breakup crying in her apartment, surrounded by tissues and the Korean textbook she can no longer bear to look at. Everything in her small space reminds her of Do-hyun, the coffee cup he bought for her, the Korean English dictionary he annotated with helpful notes, the sweater he left behind during one of their movie nights. Eunji and Minjun take turns checking on her, bringing food she doesn't eat and comfort she can't quite accept. The pain feels too fresh, too raw, for their well-meaning assurances that time will help heal her heart. "He called me a distraction," she tells Eunji on the 4th day, the words still sharp enough to cut. "After everything we shared, everything I thought we meant to each other, I was just a distraction." "You know that's not true," Eunji responds firmly. "I saw how he looked at you. That man was falling in love, whether he was brave enough to admit it or not. Then why did he choose his company over me?" The question that has been torturing Kaya finally finds voice. Why wasn't I worth fighting for? Minjun, who has been quietly supportive throughout the crisis, finally speaks up. Maybe he doesn't know how to fight for personal happiness. Maybe no one ever taught him that it's possible to have both duty and love. Their words plant a seed of perspective that takes days to grow, but gradually Kaya begins to see their relationship's end not as evidence of her inadequacy, but as proof of Do-hyun's fear. He's spent his entire adult life believing that personal desire and professional responsibility are mutually exclusive, and when forced to choose, he defaulted to the familiar pattern of sacrifice and duty. This realization doesn't make the pain disappear, but it does transform it from self-doubt into something approaching understanding. Do-hyun didn't reject her because she wasn't good enough. He rejected the possibility of happiness because he doesn't believe he deserves it. On the 7th day, Kaya makes a decision that surprises everyone, including herself. Instead of spending her remaining time in Seoul hiding in her apartment, she's going to use it to prove something. To Do-hyun, to herself, and to everyone who thinks cross-cultural relationships are impossible fantasies. She begins preparing for the academic presentation that will serve as her final project, a paper on cultural bridges in globalized relationships. But what starts as an academic exercise becomes something much more personal. A manifesto on the courage required to love across differences, the strength needed to build bridges between worlds that seem incompatible, and the possibility of creating new forms of belonging that honor multiple identities. The university auditorium is more crowded than Kaya expected for a student presentation. Word has somehow spread about the American exchange student's final project, and the audience includes not just her classmates and professors, but also local community members interested in cross-cultural dialogue, several Korean media representatives, and, Though she doesn't know it, Do-hyun, sitting in the back row wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses like a celebrity trying to remain incognito. Kaya takes the stage wearing an outfit that represents the synthesis of her journey. Jeans from home paired with a traditional Korean-inspired blazer that Yoonji designed specially for this moment. Her natural hair styled in a way that honors both her African-American heritage and the Korean beauty standards she's learned to navigate. 6 months ago, I came to Seoul thinking I knew what I was looking for, she begins, her voice carrying clearly through the auditorium. I thought cultural exchange meant learning about traditions and customs, trying new foods, and maybe picking up enough language skills to order coffee without embarrassing myself. The audience laughs, and Kaya feels some of her nervous energy transform into confidence. But real cultural exchange isn't about becoming someone different. It's about discovering that love, whether romantic, platonic, or self-love, has the power to expand our understanding of who we can be while honoring who we've always been. She speaks about the challenges of navigating Korean social expectations while maintaining her American identity, the difficulty of building relationships across language barriers, and the courage required to open your heart to someone whose world seems incompatible with your own. I learned that belonging isn't something you find, it's something you create. Sometimes with another person, sometimes within a community, but always starting with accepting yourself fully and believing that you deserve love without having to sacrifice who you are. In the back row, Do-hyun feels every word like a personal revelation. This is the woman he called a distraction, someone brave enough to stand in front of a crowd and speak her truth in a language she's still learning, someone strong enough to find wisdom in heartbreak, someone generous enough to share what she's learned without bitterness or blame. Cross-cultural relationships require extra courage because they ask us to believe in possibilities that society tells us are impractical. They require us to choose love over fear, connection over comfort, growth over safety. Kaya's voice grows stronger with each sentence. But maybe that's exactly what the world needs more of. People willing to build bridges instead of walls. People brave enough to love across differences. People strong enough to create new definitions of home and family and belonging. The presentation concludes with a multimedia segment where Kaya shares photos and videos from her time in Seoul, images of her learning to make kimchi with Do-hyun's grandmother, laughing with Yoonji and Min-jun at karaoke, exploring traditional markets and modern galleries, participating in university festivals. The final image is a selfie she took on her first snowy day in Seoul, her face glowing with joy and possibility. This is what cultural bridge building looks like, she says as the image fills the screen. Not perfection, not the erasure of differences, but the celebration of connection across those differences. Not the promise that love will be easy, but the commitment that it will be worth the effort. The standing ovation that follows lasts for several minutes, but Kaya barely hears it. Her eyes have found Do-hyun in the back row, and the expression on his face tells her everything she needed to know about whether her words reached their intended audience. Do-hyun waits until the auditorium empties before approaching the stage where Kaya stands gathering her materials with shaking hands. The adrenaline of public speaking is wearing off, replaced by the nervous energy of seeing him again after days of silence. That was... he begins, then switches to Korean, then back to English, clearly struggling to find words adequate to express what he's feeling. That was incredible. You were incredible. Thank you. Kaya responds carefully, her protective walls firmly in place despite the way her heart races at his proximity. I need to apologize. Do-hyun continues, moving closer. Not just for calling you a distraction, but for being too much of a coward to fight for what we had, for choosing fear over love, for making you feel like you weren't worth the complicated parts of my life. Kaya sets down her presentation materials, giving him her full attention. Do-hyun, let me finish, please. His voice carries the desperation of someone who knows this might be his only chance to make things right. I spent the last week thinking about what you said in there, about building bridges and choosing love over fear. You were right about everything. I was raised to believe that duty and personal happiness were mutually exclusive, that loving someone meant being weak or distracted or selfish. He takes a deep breath, visibly gathering courage, but watching you up there, seeing the strength it took to share your truth with all those people, listening to you talk about love as something that expands rather than limits us, I realized that you didn't make me weaker. You made me want to be better, not just as a CEO, but as a person. Tears are starting to form in Kaya's eyes, but she remains silent, letting him continue. The company crisis isn't over, and there will probably be more challenges ahead. Dating me means dealing with media attention, family pressure, and social expectations that aren't fair. I can't promise it will be easy. Do-hyun's voice becomes stronger, more certain. But I can promise that I will never again make you feel like you're a burden or a distraction. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And if you'll give me another chance, I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. The silence that follows feels infinite, filled with the weight of everything they've shared and lost, and might be able to rebuild. I'm supposed to leave tomorrow, Kaya finally says, her voice barely above a whisper. I know. And if that's what you want, I'll drive you to the airport myself and wish you every happiness in the world. Do-hyun's hands are shaking slightly as he reaches into his jacket pocket. But if there's any part of you that wants to stay, that believes we can make this work despite all the complications. I talked to the university about extending your exchange program. The paperwork is ready. You just have to sign it. He holds out a folder that represents possibility, choice, and the kind of leap of faith that transforms lives. You did all this without knowing if I'd forgive you? Kaya asks, incredulous. I did it because I love you. Do-hyun responds simply. And because sometimes you have to prepare for the future you want, even when you don't know if it's possible. Kaya looks at the folder, then at his face, seeing not the controlled CEO she first met, but the man who has learned to hope again because of her. The choice feels simultaneously enormous and simple: stay safe in the known world of Chicago, or risk everything for a love that promises to be complicated, challenging, and absolutely worth fighting for. She takes the folder and signs her name with steady hands, choosing possibility over certainty, love over fear, the future they could build together over the past that no longer fits. 1 year later, the cherry blossoms are blooming again along the Han River, and Seoul has become home in ways Kaya never expected when she first stepped off the plane at Incheon. The city that once felt overwhelming and foreign now feels like a partner in her daily life. Still challenging, still full of surprises, but fundamentally welcoming to the person she's become. The cultural exchange program she developed has exceeded everyone's expectations, bringing together students from around the world to study not just Korean language and culture, but the art of building bridges across differences. Do-hyun's company has become one of the program's major sponsors, and the initiative has attracted international attention as a model for meaningful cross-cultural education. You're famous, Yoonji teases as they walk through Hongdae after another successful program orientation. The Korean-American bridge-building expert who fell in love with a CEO. We're both famous, Kaya corrects, squeezing her best friend's hand. The fashion designer who's about to debut her first collection inspired by cultural fusion and authentic connection. Their friendship has deepened over the year, evolving from cultural guidance into genuine sisterhood. Yoonji has become the sister Kaya never had, while Kaya has helped Yoonji develop confidence in her artistic vision and business acumen. Minjun, now working as a professional photographer documenting social change, has become one of Kaya's closest friends and a valued member of their chosen family. His photographs of the cultural exchange program have been featured in international publications, and his friendship with Kaya has matured into something deeper and more lasting than romance could have been. "Are you nervous about tonight?" he asks as they approach the restaurant where Do-hyun is waiting for dinner. A weekly tradition they've maintained despite his increasingly busy schedule. Tonight is special because Robert Williams is visiting Seoul for the first time, finally ready to meet the man who captured his daughter's heart and convinced her to build a life on the other side of the world. Terrified, Kaya admits with a laugh. Dad's protective instincts haven't diminished just because I'm happy. But when they arrive at the restaurant, the scene that greets them dissolves all of Kaya's anxiety. Do-hyun and her father are deep in conversation, their body language relaxed and engaged. Robert is showing Do-hyun photos on his phone, probably embarrassing childhood pictures based on Do-hyun's delighted expression, while Do-hyun responds with stories that make Robert laugh in the hearty way that means he genuinely likes someone. They're bonding over business consulting strategies, Do-hyun explains, when Kaya slides into the seat beside him, accepting his kiss on her cheek as naturally as breathing. Your father has some brilliant ideas about international market expansion. And your boyfriend, Robert says, using the English word with only slight awkwardness, has some innovative approaches to corporate social responsibility that could revolutionize how American companies think about community engagement. Dinner becomes a celebration not just of their relationship, but of the ways their families and worlds are learning to intersect and support each other. Robert shares stories about Kaya's childhood determination and academic achievements, while Do-hyun talks about how she's helped him become a more empathetic leader and a more complete person. "You know," Robert says as dessert arrives, "when Kaya first told me she was staying in Korea for a man, I thought she was making a mistake. I thought she was giving up her future for a romantic fantasy." Kaya tenses slightly, but her father continues with a warm smile. "I was wrong. She wasn't giving up her future. She was creating a better one. And not just for herself, but for all the students who will benefit from the program she built. All the people whose lives will be changed by the bridges she's helping to construct." Later that evening, after Robert has returned to his hotel and the others have gone home, Kaya and Do-hyun walk along the Han River under a canopy of stars. The night is warm, filled with the sounds of the city they both love, and Kaya feels the deep contentment that comes from being exactly where and with whom you belong. "Your father likes me," Do-hyun says with obvious relief and pleasure. "He loves you," Kaya corrects. "Almost as much as I do." They stop walking, and Do-hyun turns to face her fully, his hands framing her face in the gesture that has become their signature form of intimacy. "I have something to tell you," he says, his voice carrying the same nervous excitement it held the night he first confessed his feelings. "What is it?" "The board approved my proposal to open an international headquarters in Chicago. We'll be splitting our time between Seoul and your hometown, building business bridges that match the cultural ones you're creating." Kaya stares at him, processing the magnitude of what he's saying. "You're moving to Chicago? Partially?" "We're expanding to Chicago," he corrects. "Together, if you want to. If you're ready to show me your world the way you've embraced mine." The kiss that follows tastes like promises and possibility, like the future they're building one brave choice at a time. When they break apart, both laughing with joy and relief, Kaya realizes that this is what love actually looks like. Not the dramatic passion of K-dramas, but the steady commitment to growing together, to supporting each other's dreams, to creating a life that honors both of their authentic selves. There's something else, Do-hyun says, reaching into his jacket pocket with the same gesture that produced the university extension papers a year ago. This time, the small velvet box makes Kaya's heart stop completely. I know we haven't talked about marriage yet, he begins, but Kaya interrupts him with laughter. Are you seriously proposing to me on the anniversary of our first fight in makeup? I'm proposing on the anniversary of the night you taught me that love is about building bridges, not walls. The night you showed me that real partnership makes both people stronger. Do-hyun drops to one knee beside the river, and suddenly the private moment feels as epic as any K-drama finale. Marry me, Kaya. Help me build a life that spans continents and cultures. Be my partner in everything. The ring is perfect. A design that incorporates both Korean and American elements, created by a local artisan who specializes in pieces that honor multiple cultural traditions. But more perfect than the ring is the man offering it, the future he's proposing, and the knowledge that their love story is just beginning. Yes, Kaya says, pulling him to his feet so she can kiss him properly. Yes to all of it. Yes to building bridges. Yes to spanning continents. Yes to being partners in everything. As Do-hyun slides the ring onto her finger, Kaya thinks about the scared, lonely girl who stepped off a plane at Incheon Airport 18 months ago, searching for something she couldn't even name. That girl could never have imagined this moment. Surrounded by chosen family, engaged to a man who loves every complicated cross-cultural aspect of who she is, preparing to build a life that honors both her roots and her growth. The sound of their laughter echoes across the water, mixing with the music from nearby restaurants and the gentle sounds of a city that never sleeps. Seoul has become home, but more than that, love has become home. Not a place they have to choose, but a bridge they've built together that connects all the places and people they care about. If this love story has touched your heart, if you believe in the power of building bridges across differences, then you understand what Kaya and Do-hyun learned. That the most beautiful relationships don't ask us to choose between who we were and who we're becoming, but invite us to become more fully ourselves than we ever imagined possible. Consider joining our community of dreamers and bridge builders by subscribing and sharing these stories of love that transcends boundaries. Click the video on your screen to discover another tale of hearts that refuse to be limited by the distances between them.